Hello and welcome to John and James Live. My name is John Hastings. I'm with my co-host, Mr. James CeeLo, and we are with the main man, entrepreneur, investor, David Green. James says you're known for basically rolling businesses up like a spliff and smoking them all the way to the bank. Is that right? Pretty much.
I mean, I've never heard it described that way before, but I'm going to use it. I think that's. If I could have
I
written
don't know
something
much about
myself,
roll-ups, but that's as pretty much as close as we're going to get. But we're going
What
to
a start! What a start!
For the record, kids at home, do not do that.
Yeah.
Naturally, you go to that saying, and
do it.
yeah, I wouldn't. What a great introduction! I think if I could have written something, people would think I wrote that myself and gave it to you. Please say this about me.
No. It's all off the top of the head. But how are you today, David?
Yeah, all good. Thank you. All good.
So we're gonna
chatting with you guys.
We're gonna learn about selling, acquiring SMEs, what you do in the investor space. There's probably a lot of movement. I'm hearing on the grapevine from just a bit of research that there's a lot of boring businesses that are very popular now that are being acquired. I know that you're looking at businesses that are sort of $1 million+ revenue, acquiring them and doing things like that. So just tell us about yourself, David. Where did it all get started in terms of your journey into the entrepreneurial world?
Well, you said we've only got an hour, so I had my first job at 6. I used to go out with the milkman around 6 years old and delivering cartons of milk on our council estate in Hackney, and my wages were a wonderful fresh strawberry milkshake off the which they had in the 70s. Amazingly, but officially started working even at weekends when I was 10 in markets. And when I speak, my partners all laugh really because I constantly remind when I'm in meetings, I'm a market trader. I left school at 15 and I used to sell jeans and t-shirts in the market. So I'm the least likely founder of now, thank God, a global investment firm. I'm the least likely founder of a company like this, and I think I'm evident. I mean, I'm a living proof that that old saying, if he can do it, anybody can. I know it can sometimes be a bit of a cliche, but it's true. Hard work. Go to that saying. You need some luck, but people argue you can make your own luck. That never say die, no matter what's thrown at you attitude. And but yeah, no, I've been through a series of businesses. Some were super successful, some were less so, but that's part of life's journey, as we know. And just under 2.5 years ago, I launched Echo 8 Investments, and it's just it was meant to be to do exactly that without the spliff, though, just finding good companies. People that are retiring are normally a good place to start looking at those. We've really kind of grown from there into renewable energy, and our ticket size has just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And my hero is Richard Branson, if I'm being brutally honest, in business anyway. And I like the idea that I often sit in meetings and I don't have a clue often what people are talking about. The good thing from my position, I guess, him as well, is I can just say to them, look, I know what you're talking about. You have to, I always ask people to address me like I'm 5 in these conversations, just to slow it down and speak plainly. Even one yesterday with a fund out of Luxembourg, we were having a meeting. I know that idea of faking it till you make it. I get that theory, but just be authentic. And I'd like to think that anyone who's come across me would say that I've never presented myself as anyone other than used to sell jeans and t-shirts in the markets. And just the ticket size is just significantly different now than it was back then. That's all.
Yeah.
I love that. This is what John and James is all about. It's those kind of stories, isn't it? It's like the level of humility. You know where you've come from. There's no bullshit. There's none of this kind of like, I'm going to project out into the world that I'm something I'm not. Like, it's just, life's too short, isn't it? And I think we're all a little bit too long in the tooth, really, to start kind of getting into that ego thing. And when I mentioned self-awareness, I think that comes from a level of this acceptance, being comfortable in your skin and not trying to be something that you're not. Like, potentially it's from maybe this self-esteem issue that some people have, that they feel like they've got to compensate. But I mean, I met you before, and I know that you are who you appear to be. We've had conversations and just that genuine element. So I kind of back that up what you've just said. But mate, love it. Love it, love it, love it.
So
it's draining as well, isn't it? Sorry, John, but it's just I would find it so draining to try and put on a show, particularly the amount of meetings I go to. We're in many countries now. I've just got back from Lagos. I've got to go to events in the US soon. It would be so draining to me to try and put on all these different hats, and and I'm getting old. But I just like to think I would like this in my teens, if I'm being honest. I just be the best version of you, and people will either like that or they won't. I think that's just a piece of self-security, if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the sort of London tradesperson, Del Boy type of entrepreneurial spirit is there with quite a few people. But how do you see the landscape changing in modern times? Because like I said at the beginning, is there an influx of people who are coming into retirement? They've got very profitable businesses, but they are, sometimes there's no succession plan. Do they let these businesses go if their children don't want them, or what happens to these?
Well, quite often, sadly, they stay on far too long for those reasons. I don't want to sound too disparaging because there's some excellent ones out there, but often they'll go to a broker, and brokers, like any other consultancy, they want the listing, and notwithstanding, again, some credible ones, many of them don't do that process justice. I think there's some, I don't want to quote the stat because I'm sure any one of the 3 or 4 people who have bothered to dial in and listen to this might fact check me, but there's I think the percentage of successful sales through brokers is quite low in the UK. I think the US is probably just as bad, if not worse. And so, in the absence of succession planning, it could be passed over to staff that have been there for a long time, or they stay on too long. And actually, a couple of years ago, we acquired one. The business was doing, at the time the owners were in their late 50s, early 60s, it was doing about 6 or 7 million in revenue. We met them when he was in his late 80s, and it was barely doing anything. And that's just a consequence of just staying on far too long. And actually, I have to tell, I don't think any business should be owned for more than 3 or 4 years. Doesn't matter who you are. I don't think any business should. I think you should buy a business, get it to a next level, and then get it to a point where I've done something really cool. That means you've increased its value, and then sell it. I think it's an asset. That's all. It's just an asset. And unfortunately, it's understandable, but unfortunately what happens is, and the SME make up such a massive percentage of the economy globally, but SMEs get married to their business. It's really
emotionally involved, isn't it?
Emotionally involved. And actually they're one of the reasons why they struggle for value, because it's really difficult to lend when you want to buy that, to raise capital against largely, that the goodwill is largely against an emotion. One more thing on that. The amount of times a business owner has said to me how long the staff have been with them, how loyal they are, how long the customers have been with them, how loyal they are. To that owner, that's a huge asset. But to an incumbent, it's actually a risk. So the more you're telling me, the more you're doing value in your business. You don't realize. You think you're impressing us to make it so we can now come and buy you. It actually makes it harder because that goodwill is a consequence of those lifetime of relationships with you. But I think we're good people, but we're not you. And so all of a sudden that represents a risk. So it's really difficult, really difficult.
So just going back to the broker side of things, David, so is that just an education piece for businesses that are looking to sell, that they don't necessarily just have to go through a broker, they can go direct to somebody like you? And then how do you become visible in that respect?
Yeah, it's almost, I think it's an almost imperfect storm, because if you think about it, if you were selling your house, you're either going to be bold enough to list it on Rightmove yourself to attract an audience, or you're just going to go to an agent that's going to do it for you because you believe they are who's the best one of the three you bring around your house. That's their job, and they are, let's call it, the professional in the room. Fair enough. But what's the difference? If someone was to seek out an investor, it would be a bad move in many ways, because unless you're a most savvy negotiator where you've convinced them, you've spoken to 3 or 4 that you've reached out to, you've weakened a position straight away because you've showed your hand that you're willing to sell. And there isn't a single SME business owner that we've ever spoken to that are well versed in this space. They'll all tell you they've never done anything like this before, and so they need their hand holding. So the almost imperfect storm has been created for SME owners by they're naturally going to go to a broker who is their consultant and professional in the room. But sadly, more often than not, they're given unrealistic multiples. And of course, once we know the old adage, it's worth what someone's prepared to pay for it. And once that someone gets in front of them, well, as an investor, you're not a retail buyer, are you? You want to be a wholesale buyer. And so it's I think it's challenging. I think it's challenging. Honestly, my advice would be to any business owner, depending on your age, but try get your family involved as early as possible, so you've got a succession plan. But the smarter move would be go and acquire businesses yourself. That will force you to have an infrastructure in place, and that just opens you up for better funding options when someone does want to come and buy you. But as a standalone owner occupier, I think you need a huge amount of luck, and I think it's really difficult.
So you're looking for businesses where the tech's a little bit ancient, where you can go in there, improve the technology, and then find other accompanying businesses that complement this specific business, and then put those together to add value. Is that normally what you're doing?
When I launched Echo 8, I learned pretty quickly any opportunity needs to tick 3 boxes. I remember one guy rang me and he said to me, I've sent you an email. Hope it wasn't you, James, because I always laughed about it. I don't think it was. Someone rang me and said, I've sent you an email, and there's a spreadsheet on it, and it's a 72-point spreadsheet of due diligence for when you're looking at a business. And I thanked him. I said, because I have a hobby. One of my hobbies is deleting emails without reading them, so I'm going to add yours to the list. So he kind of laughed, but I sensed he didn't find it that funny. But he said to me, why? I said, because you just don't need 72 points to due diligence. I use 3 fundamentally.
Okay.
Now there are subs of 2 of them particularly, but the 3 are: do you like the business? Do you like it? Don't go and buy a key cutting shop just because it's cheap, because chances are you might hate the job, you might hate the business, might bore you to tears. So do you like the business is really important, so it remains fun. So important, the next one, can you add value to it? Are the things you just know that's just super low hanging fruit that as soon as I touch that, it's grown. I just know this inside out.
Yeah.
Do you understand and can you add value to the business? And for me, the most important one is, do you like who you could be doing the deal with? Chances are they're going to stay on for a while. And so there's no point giving yourself a headache for whether it be 6 months, a year, or 2 years, or it could be you only buy a part of the business, which means they're now a partner with you. And so if you can tick those 3 boxes, well, do you like the business comes with its own set of due diligence? You've got to look deep into it and understand it fully. Do you think you can add value? Again, there's additional stuff there. But quite often these things are, it gets overthought. If you do go for funding, let them do the overthinking. As an entrepreneur, keep it simple. I think that's, for us, what we look for. How can we keep it simple? And not overthink it, because I think if you overthink things, of course you can make mistakes in life. No one wants to do that, but
so if it's a really good business, then David, but the business owner you just can't see eye to eye with, you can't get on with him, is that going to be a deal breaker? Is there 100%. No? You can't move forward with that at all, even if it's that this is a fantastic opportunity.
I've done it.
Business owner's just a pain in the arse.
We were about to close a deal last year, I think, in cybersecurity, and we'd done the deal. Everything was virtually agreed, and then we met, which was my mistake. I now insist on meeting every shareholder, every stakeholder during the process. But there was one more person we hadn't met, and there was their CTO, who was a shareholder, and he just worked really hard to demonstrate. There's about 8 or 9 of us on the call. Me, partners, their side. This felt like it was just it was a sign off, really, just to finally meet him. And he was a complete tool, if the truth be told, and worked so hard to demonstrate how he was the cleverest in the room. Clearly had the biggest ego. So that call ended, and then I stayed on with the 4 or 5 different partners, CFO and whatever, and they started talking about who we delegate what to for the next step. And I just said, listen, can you all stop talking? This is finished. What? Why? So we're not doing it. We are not doing this. So we're out. And I said, because this guy, he's got a massive ego. At some point, we will be bringing in other acquisitions to be in the same group as him. So there'll be other directors, other C-suite, and we're going to have to demonstrate that we've supported this company with this guy who's quite a, he's a CTO. He's not like a passive shareholder.
Yeah.
Hugely important, reputationally, your own aggravation. Massive. Probably the most important one for me.
And that's presumably been an over-experience over time, that you've come across these situations and obviously had that learning from it, that it wasn't, you don't just, not kind of born with that sense necessarily, that you've been through this previously and historically that is going to be a big issue for you, I'm assuming.
Well, I don't know any relationship can survive if someone's got a raging ego. I'm not sure it can, unless they've got a massive amount of sense of humor about themselves, or they've got an ego but they don't tell themselves to. So if you can tell them to get stuff, they laugh. No, you're probably right. But most people with big egos don't have that side of their character. And it's constant clashes, and who needs it? Life's far too short. And so I understand, even forget acquisitions. If you're a sales director, you're trying to close a deal, but who you'll be getting it signed off for, they're a complete arse. You just know it. Walk away. Have the balls to say no, because that deal is not the only deal on the table. There is an infinite number of opportunities out there if you keep looking. The more important thing is to have options. That's more important than deal heat. And again, that deal heat doesn't have to be M&A. That can be anything. Close your heat. You've got to close something. Don't do it if you know that you're going to give yourself a headache further down the line. Very important for us anyway. Very important for me.
Is there a difference in multiples for B2C and B2B businesses? And do you see more of one rather than the other when it comes to acquisitions?
I think multiples are I'm not sure you can rely on those. And if I'm going to try and answer that question as best I can, it will be horses for courses. depending on who the buyer is as well. But there's that old adage, isn't there? It's worth what someone's prepared to pay for it. It's no different to, again, I go back to the house analogy. When you're selling it, you want as much as possible. When you're buying it, you want to get as cheap as possible. Well, as an investor, that's never truer, is it? As you know, you want to just get it, you want your money back, you want your money out as quickly as possible. And I don't know that there are many investors out there, both whether it's in the corporate or the SME world, that are going to want to pay over the top for something. I mean, there are arguments for that in the corporate world, most notably, so other people don't get it, so they'll pay over the top for it. However, one thing's for sure is whatever that multiple is, whatever you can negotiate that multiple to be, you can hugely. There's a great strategy, whereas you pay what you can not get away, what you can negotiate on paying. And that's such a moving part, because the more you can put down, the more cash they get on deal day, the more you can so that's all a negotiation. But actually, it's once you start rolling them into a group, is where you hugely impact. So let's say you buy something at 4x multiple, and then you do it again. So now you've got 2 at 4x multiple, and you're pollinating against each other because you've found some low-hanging fruits and some synergies. Once you've done that the 3rd or 4th time and they're in a group, that group is now probably subject to 8 or 10x multiple. So when you do go out and find something that's 2, 3, 4 multiple, as soon as you stick it in that group, you've almost doubled or trebled its value, its asset value overnight. So it's a great strategy to do, but you just need to do the building blocks first to start your group, get something in there, fix it, improve it, add value to the point earlier, get another one in, do the same thing. And then before you know it, those multiples just accelerate so quickly due to the group you're putting it into.
Is that what's technically called roll-ups? Is that
technically?
Is it?
Technically, you're rolling things up into a greater entity, and your consolidated EBIT is really a target to do. Yeah, so it's a good strategy.
And then who buys those? Who buys those roll up?
Yeah, now you've got choices, because if you can demonstrate a group that's, say, north of 10, 8 to 10 or above, depending what sector you're in, you do open yourself up to institutional sovereign money, private equity money. Private equity generally don't go for their SMEs. They want someone to come to them, having done the group structure, put a bunch of good businesses in it, left a little bit of meat on the bone that they can still cull afterwards. It's never a bad thing. But they're, generally speaking, they've got plenty of money, and they want good groups that have been founded and established, and you've demonstrated growth, so to speak.
Yeah.
So how do people tend to find you, David? Is it word of mouth? If you get obviously groups of people doing this, or businesses that, again, we've got that kind of broker situation. I know that brokers will feed through to you, but how are people finding you to deal with you directly usually?
Well, it's interesting because LinkedIn, people do contact us on LinkedIn, but as great as sort of the SME market has been for us in our first year and a bit, we've completely pivoted away from it now, actually. Just where we're in renewable energy, and we've gone from, and actually that's the quote I said before about I used to have jeans and t-shirts in the market. I was at an event in Lagos this time last Friday, and I was sitting talking to government officials and talking about government contracts for solar and wind and other technologies we've invested in. And I was even saying to them, it's just a joke, I'm even sitting here, I sell jeans and t-shirts in the markets. And I only say that because it's true, so it doesn't matter if I'm talking to Donald Trump, it doesn't matter, it's still true. So I'm not going to put on there. The people I was speaking to they are the equivalent of what you call a senator in the US. They're really important people.
and I'm talking to them like I'm talking to you now. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't make a difference. It's still
So
true.
how did that come up? How did it come about? How did you even get into the room? Talk us through the process of how it happened.
So the stage before that is I was invited to speak at the Nigerian and British Chamber of Commerce in London about 6 weeks ago, and I was on a panel and answered a few questions, made a few points, and there was a lady called Thelma who was on the stage with me as well, and I just can remember hearing her talk. I was like, my jaw dropped, thinking, "Oh my God, this woman's unbelievably talented." And my brain was sitting there saying, "You're just a marketer. What are you doing in this space? You're these global experts, and you idiot." I was really laughing at myself. And afterwards, she said, "Can we have a chat?" I was thinking, "Oh my God, is she going to tell me off?" Because I was just awful up there. And she said, "Some of these you're saying were awesome. Would you come and be my guest?" She's like a chairperson of this huge thing in Nigeria. And I went, "Are you sure you mean me?" Anyway, she and I now are like, we call each other twins, which is hilarious. And I was saying that when I was out there as well. And yeah, we've got a lot on the go now. And so, you go, well, how did you end up at the BCC? Well, that was I was at an event, and I wasn't speaking at that event, but I spoke to plenty of people at an event for a different country. And so I'm constantly, I'm consistently now being invited to these different events because we've invested in incredible renewable energy businesses that can really fix global issues. They really can.
It's important stuff, isn't it?
Let's
not beat around the bush. Seriously important stuff.
I mean, Nigeria and South Africa keep swapping over each other as the biggest economy on the continent. I think Nigeria might be number one at the moment. And yet Ethiopia as well, if you're at the age of James and I, we're really old, we'll really readily remember back in the 80s when Ethiopia was starving by the millions. It's now the third biggest economy in Africa. I mean, the generation has done the most unbelievable job in a country that was, 40 odd years ago where they were.
I was going to say the last 40 years.
It's unbelievable. And yet in Ethiopia alone, there are some 60 million people short of energy. So you think, well, it's the most beautiful continent, most rich resources, and we've got technology that we've invested in that can go some way to help fix that problem. And so we're blessed now because we get to talk to some really cool people that and what we've done as well is, we know with what we've invested in, we know we're going to make a lot of money, but I think we've just kind of clawed back the thinking a bit by saying, well, let's not make all of it. Let's go on a mission now and partner stakeholders in Africa to say, well, let's fix this problem. Let's share profits. So
does it feel, David, sorry to interrupt, mate, I'm just as you're talking, does this kind of feel like everything has been leading up to this moment for you? It's like all that kind of M&A stuff that you've done now, this is the kind of the real mission here.
I think so.
Proper kind of meat and the drink of it.
I think so. I'd be lying if I said that my career's had a purpose before now, other than feeding your family and becoming successful. I mean, there's nothing.
This feels different, right?
This feels amazing. This feels amazing, and we're saying to. I had a meeting since I've been back with a bank, and I've said, we've got a lot of energy contracts on the table. They're hugely lucrative. We want to scale back our profits and sell it back to Africa. We don't want to keep it. We want those profits to stay in Africa. So we want to get a decent ROI for us. And we actually want to give a year of those profits into African causes as well. So we want to do the opposite to what maybe the West has typically done. We want to make it mission-led. So we know we're going to do super well anyway. And, if you just, to me, this feels like, to me and my partners, this feels like a moment in time that perhaps we've never had before and we'll never have again. Africa doesn't need people
saying we want to help you. They don't need that. They're
Mm.
amazingly proud and brilliant, intelligent people. I mean, geniuses. But I think if we can demonstrate that we can help with what we've invested in, solve an energy deficit or contribute to reducing an energy deficit, but simultaneously say, by giving us government contracts, we're going to make a lot of money. But why don't we keep, of the 25 years, let's sell it and let 20 years of those profits stay in Africa rather than taking all 25 years out. And that's kind of our mission at the moment. And yeah, it's exciting. It really is exciting.
It is exciting. And what is it like in the UK being able to buy a business? Is there something called like seller financing and things like that? And how does that work with the banks in the UK? If you say you was a starter and you just wanted to buy maybe a local business that you've seen, is that a possibility?
So I can see where John's head is. We're talking about helping solve global energy crisis. And he wants to know about raising money for it.
Exactly.
You got to start somewhere.
It's all about the money.
John, if you ever get bored of James, just let me know, man. Let's have some fun together. I mean, James is getting old. He's not going to live forever. We can I love that.
Yeah,
there are a whole bunch of strategies that can be used. Seller finance is not overly appealing to the seller, particularly at retirement age. Although there are contingencies that can be put in place, in their head, they're thinking, I'm borrowing money to buy myself out, so to speak. It just takes some convincing. It's not impossible, but it does take some convincing. And apart from anything else, someone once said to me, and it's really true, it's about ego. So when someone sells a business and it's either a no money down deal, so it's all deferred, or say seller finance, first of all, they've got to go home to the wife and explain it to them, and they know they're going to get beaten with a tea towel. And then they've got to then face their mates, either at the golf club or wherever, and say, that's it. And no one wants to have that conversation. And so there are a number of strategies that we've successfully used. I've bought many businesses without having to, no money down deals. But it's challenging because a business owner wants to retire knowing that they've got, and look, they've got to then go to their accountants who can say, forget that. They've got to go to their lawyers and say, I've had people come back to me before and say, my lawyer said, whatever I take out the business on deal day, you might as well forget the rest because it's like you're never going to get it. And if you do, it's a bonus. Well, that doesn't sit too well with someone who's thinking of selling. It's not likely to, is it? So
yeah, I don't know if you know Cody Sanchez. Have you heard of the lady who's into buying and selling business? She's basically red hot all over social media, and she's based in America, but she's very much into the no money down, buying what she calls boring businesses, so like laundry mats and plumbing businesses that people don't want, but they're making good money.
But the only person who doesn't want to hear that is the person that's selling that it's a boring business. I understand to the audience out there of investors that probably won't go for those type of businesses, but that doesn't. I think I have heard about, but that doesn't sit too well, does it, with the person who actually is selling the business? So, well, no one's buying your boring business. I've done lots of talks on rapport building, and I can't imagine anyone has jumped into bed and had nookie with someone who's told them it was boring. This is going to be boring for most people, and they go, okay, well, I'll do it with you then. And so when you're trying to induce a good pathway, a healthy pathway to a successful no money down deal, you're going to have to go into rapport building overdrive to stand a chance of that happening. They ought to feel like you are a safe pair of hands. So I know I've heard that expression many times. And in the investor world, that makes sense. And just again, for the handful of people listening, I don't think your business is boring. Just for the record, it's John that said it.
Yeah, I think it's because a lot of younger people who think about potentially buying businesses. She thinks buying businesses is going to be the new thing in the next 20 years. Much more people are going to be getting into understanding it, because at the moment it's very abstract to people. But people are going for like shiny businesses, like the new AI software startup, when a plumbing
Which is it.
business down the road or a roofing business can be doing millions, but people are not thinking about those traditional types of businesses, I guess.
They will, and they'll have to. AI, I mean, I'm not a technician. I think it's a miracle that you even got me on today. There was buttons I had to press and think, what do I do now? So, but AI, as it was explained to me, you could look to buy an AI business, and 4 weeks later, whatever you bought could be obsolete. That's the speed in which it's moving.
Yeah.
So it's good for VC money because they're punt takers, and but we tend to not touch, and mostly for those reasons. And yeah, good cash flowing businesses are an obvious, and there's just the baby boom era, and kids not wanting to take them on. The danger is, and I know many business owners that I've spoken to, or we've spoken to. We were offering them a Cody type deal, stuff we've done with others, and whether it's from advice or their own sense of security, let's call it, they turned us down. I'm almost certain most, if not all, are still sitting there, and they're another year older, the owner, and no plan in place. Both here and in the States. So yeah, it's.
And David, where do you see businesses at the moment in terms of the landscape? Do you think people are struggling in small businesses? Is there a lot more challenges now, like the electricity rates, business rates? Do you see a shift where there is some quite big difficulties in this SME landscape, or you just think it was the same in the 80s? It's just a different time, and you got to evolve.
I don't want to sit here and I think it's done too many times. I don't want to sit here and just downplay Britain and the opportunities. No, I think there's definitely money to be made, but I think I'm such an advocate of buying companies, so you don't have to be an investment expert. You could be a trade buyer, and if you own a laundrette, go and buy some more, because it's already got people coming through the door each day washing their clothes. If you own an electrical company, go and buy another one. Go and buy an HVAC business. Go and buy a plumbing business.
Yeah,
because the customers are the same in both your company and the one you're looking to buy. They just are ringing up for different reasons. You can now almost potentially double your customer base and offer trades to both, offer your trades and vice versa. I think it's if you think about, this is how the corporate world grows, by going out and doing either mergers or acquisitions. I think Burger King 2 years ago spent $1 billion on another fast food chain. Why did they do that? It's because their shareholders demand it. There's no better way to grow. So if you think, well, if they're doing it, that must be a good enough reason to go and do it. And if you think about, let's think about what buying a business represents. It's new customers, new horizons. Why do we employ salespeople? To go and do exactly that. So you can actually force the growth by actually owning the outcome. You control the narrative by buying the company. You've now got a whole bunch of customers that you haven't had to pay someone to go and find you. You've now done it yourself.
Yeah.
And you just put some energies into making sure you go and visit those customers and say, oh, we now own it. And by the way, we also do this and we also do that. And then you can cross-sell. So it's the simplest and safest way to grow a business. I believe.
What's the sort of average timeline, David, from having that first conversation to actually completing the deal? I know obviously it's done on a case-by-case basis. You can get ones that are a lot more complicated and there's toing and froing, but on average, what would you say is that kind of deal time ordinarily?
I think if you get something done from first conversation to completion in 6 months, I think you've probably done quite well. Mm-hmm. They can go on for much longer. They can be done quicker. Largely depends on, again, the circumstances of the seller. Could be ill health. I haven't had one myself, but I know of people that have literally met someone. They wanted to just give them the keys because they were just ill health, couldn't cope anymore.
Yeah.
So I think the time frame is, I wouldn't say it's the wrong question, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is having many opportunities on the go at once. That's key. And again, I think as a retailer, I used to work in the markets. You won't want to go to a market store with one pair of jeans and one t-shirt and hope you sell it. You have to go with shops have multiple choices, don't they? And so you must have, I would say, a decent amount is probably about 15 to 20 opportunities that you're talking to at any one point. So if you get up to around 20, let's say as a sweet spot, the minute you've established they won't sell to you for the way you want to buy it, or it's not for you, replace it with something else. It's a numbers game.
Yeah,
it's an absolute numbers game, and the amount of people that I've known that have just said to me about they're working on one or two things. I mean, I've said to them, you might as well stop. You're not going to do either of these deals, and then you're going to be back to square one. It's a full-time thing. You've got to be speaking to lots of business owners all the time. The minute someone says, yeah, great, okay, I'm happy with those terms, great, put the phone down, go and find another one. I've had a deal fall out of bed. I'd spent over a year. Nice guy. We're looking to retire. We used to go out for brunch. We'd meet. He agreed to be paid off over a period of time. Cash out on deal day, spare cash in the bank out on deal day, the rest paid off. All agreed. We'd done the share purchase agreement. Everything was done. Literally needed signing. And I got a phone call saying he changed his mind. He just wants to sell traditionally. Someone paid for it on deal day. Now, I probably had 2.5 dozen different opportunities on my desk at that point. So I wished him luck. Didn't bother me. But imagine if you put all that effort in and it was your only one. You'd be devastated.
Yeah. Sort of like selling a house and doing that type of stuff, isn't it? On that one, it's to that point.
Until someone had their survey done, you wouldn't take it off the market. You'd say, wouldn't you? So you've got to keep. You have to have choices.
Yeah. So if you was a young man again, David, and you're starting all again, or you're talking to your children. I don't know if you've got children.
Five sons.
But wow, okay, you've been a busy man. So what would you say to them and giving them advice about what they should get into, or because things are changing so quickly now, and jobs are becoming obsolete potentially. What sort of advice do you give them?
Learn cash. Learn global capital. Because that won't change in a hurry anytime soon.
Not crypto, capital.
Could be that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert there, and I don't know from what people I know that are telling me that's got a shelf life like anything else.
Yeah.
Learn if you can control capital, if you can understand how real cash works, not what you in your savings account in high street banks, but real capital. Learn that, and you can master the universe. That's
where are you going to learn this, David? Because nobody taught me anything like that when I was at school.
I knew how to give change I had a money bag around my waist. I knew how to give change.
Yeah, you might learn 10 years old. Pythagoras, but you don't really know anything about buying a house or banking or.
But even that's not. It's knowing how institutional money works. Look, it could be starting with an economics degree and then getting into private equity, banking, commercial, corporate level. Just understanding and learning that. I think you're set for life.
I mean, going back to that time, I am intrigued, mate, at this time you spent on the market stalls. And you think if that's sort of part of your DNA growing up with that, there's no fear, is there? It's like you're in the firing line. You've got to know how to deal with people and objections and survival.
I remember
very
one of my
age.
favorite. I can remember my great uncle, my mum's uncle. He lived in the East End. He was a smart man. He always wore a shirt, tie, cardigan. He looked like David Niven, for those old enough to remember David Niven.
Nice. Nice.
served in the First World War and the Second.
Very
And,
suave.
he was very suave. And he had a market store, one of these kind of haberdashery type things where sell hairnets and clips and all that kind of stuff. And every now and then, if I'd be in the market and other stores, and I'd go and work with him for a bit as well. And I can remember, again, I was about 10 or 11 years old. And I remember going up to this woman, big woman she was, just asked, "Can I help you with something?" And she went, "Oh, shut your mouth, boy." And I've never left me that, over 40 years later, that's never left me. This idea of this little child I was. And my uncle was a very sweet man. He hated in that bad language, very old school suave gentleman. And when she left, I told him, he said, "Oh, she's just a regular. She comes here every week." So, but I don't know. It's just experiences. It's experiences like that, having left school with no education, that have probably just given me the confidence to, be just me and just stay authentic. And it defines you, doesn't it? It's your childhood.
What's some of the biggest life challenges you've had, David? What's something that's taught you something, like a situation or a hardship? Has there been anything along the way that's
loads
opened your eyes to a new perspective?
It's a great question. Yeah, loads. A good few years ago now, we had a group of companies, and we were defrauded by somebody. Cost us a lot of money, like a director in the business, and I sort of had some life choices to make, and there were a lot of people that were affected by it. And I was determined, even though it was done to us, to make sure I minimised the impact to creditors. And so I just, spoke with all of them and said, "You have to bear with me while I fix this." It went into several million, and I made sure everyone got paid. And so I think you can't take your money with you when you die, but you can take your reputation. Your name is really, I think, what should define you. And so I can look anyone in the eye, knowing that I've gone above and beyond in, that was a really challenging time. Look, I just think, again, part of my DNA, this just being super respectful to people. I learned from a young age. I talk about this a lot, actually. I find myself talking about this a lot. I learned from a young age, there's a word, I think I'd be interested if someone else challenges. I think there's one word that is the only word in the English language, or in any language, that could be representative of every single person on planet Earth. One word, because everyone wants it. It's called acceptance. I don't think you'll find a person on planet that doesn't want to be accepted. And so if you can take that idea into your world, it doesn't matter if you're talking to your husband or your wife, your kids want to be accepted for them. And certainly when we're talking to people of all nationalities now in different countries around the world, I always make sure that I demonstrate I'm not the professional in the room, you are. And so we're here to learn, and we accept your brilliance, and we expect your superpowers. We accept that you've got your version of your reality, your lived experience. And so I would like to think that's what defines me. It's massive acceptance of, my peers.
Yeah. I mean, we've only sort of had brief interactions, but that stuff lives long in the memory, doesn't it? I mean, I just think back to those weekly webinars that you're doing with, I don't know, there's 20 or so people on the screen there, and the generosity of spirit and your time and willingness just to listen to what these people were saying. They're clearly going through you know, the trials and the tribulations, but you just gave them space to talk about that. And it was as much kind of therapy as anything else, you know, that they just felt like they were being listened to, and you had that community that everybody was trying to do the same thing. They're just trying to figure it out. And you were providing that platform for them to come on and just talk about what had happened to them that week.
It's good to vent, isn't it?
It's hugely important, mate. I just, you know, for what it's worth,
I think in any environment, I think it's good. I think it's good to be able to just, you know, there's that old adage, isn't it? Once you say something, you almost half the challenge in your head just by articulating it. And so I know there's a lot of, you know, there's no secret. There's been enough on this about men in particular, like to bottle things up, their ego, their pride. You know, they've been brought up to demonstrate how they've got, you know, all the answers, all the solutions. And I just think, yeah, look, Echo Investments has become a pretty sizable organisation, and it's, you know, predicated on what we can do for each other, not what we can do for ourselves. And so I'm constantly reminding people, don't go on this journey alone. Find someone who you align with, who share your, you know, you complement each other, you know, most importantly, but you like each other and you want to spend time with each other and you respect each other, accept each other. But yeah, I think it's super important.
John and I haven't quite got to that stage yet, but I think we're getting there, mate, aren't we?
Not quite.
It's a struggle, mate, isn't it? You
could argue one's the other with just a bit of an age gap, because if you just took that top coat off of John, and all of a sudden there's a, you know,
potentially
painted something around your chin. It's getting there, John. I can see.
It could be my long lost dad, maybe.
This used to be black before we met, wasn't it, mate? I think the sort of the grey has just been a fairly recent addition.
But I heard that you're a bit of a football manager as well, David.
Well, I was. You can see the picture behind me.
Coach as well. What was that all about?
Last season was my last one. I did it about 5 years, I think, 5 seasons. Look, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I have to say, what happened is bringing up 5 boys. I had this must be a good 10 or 12 years ago now. I decided to start putting on one night a week, just a bit of a football academy type thing, just nothing too strict, just come along and play football. And I was saying to my boys, I'm sick of every night it's just on your consoles, your PlayStations or whatever. And I said, I'm going to start. And my boys said, no one will come, Dad. I won't say how they said it to me because I don't want to offend anybody, but they said, you know, they won't come. People won't do that. And so I took one of these I hired one of these 5-a-side pitches. I sort of said, I'll book it for a month and see how we go. And I said to my boys, I'll just start telling your friends about it. And however they were communicating in those days, 10 years ago. Might be WhatsApp, I don't know. Anyway, and on the first, I thought, well, 3 of my 5 boys would have come because 2 of them were too young still. I thought if we get 10, it's a start. I think something like 27 or 28 kids turned up on the first week.
Wow.
I thought, my God, it's not big enough. So I quickly went and found another sports centre where they had a full-size pitch. I said, can I do it? And I used to get 40, 45 boys come every Wednesday. I had to split them up into 2 pitches so they could play 4 teams. And I done it on my own. And I kind of understand boys. I'm a bit useless with girls. I think I was when I was a kid, if truth be told. I think they just think, I don't know what. Boys get me and I get them. And I have to tell you, I loved it. I loved it. And I subsidised quite a bit of it because there were kids that used to come from, you know, their schools that just couldn't afford the weekly. I think I charged 3 or 4 quid. I can't remember, just to play for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And actually, there was an opportunity that came off the back of it. One day, someone said to me, can we have a conversation? Can we meet for a cup of tea? So I said, sure. And he was a dad to one of the boys who used to come to the weekly football. And he was a CEO of some big company. And I wasn't investing then. I'd actually sold a business and I was in between stuff, to be honest with you. So he said, can we have a chat? He said, I come along at the end and, you know, to pick up my son. And I see you standing there you got about 40 teenage boys sitting down after a couple of hours football, and you could have heard a pin drop there. I don't know what, I can't hear, no one can hear what you're saying to them. And they're just all looking up you. I mean, I've got one son who comes, I've got 2 girls. I can't get him to sit down and shut up for 2 seconds. I don't think my friends can. You have 40 odd kids and they're hanging off your every word. And I thought to myself, if you can do that, what can you do for my directors? So do you want to come in and do a bit of consulting work for me? So I thought, maybe let's look at that. Anyway, it was, and then when my youngest got to an age, I wanted to play football, I got involved with coaching, and then eventually I became the manager. I just find, I think again, it's that word acceptance. I just don't think whether you're the MD or a parent, I just don't think that I think there's a confusion with those titles, that you are the professional in the room, you are in charge, your word is final. I think that's a fundamental error. I think you're a facilitator. That's what you are. It's your job to keep someone safe and guided, but create space for them to be the best version of themselves. Now that could be a staff member, or that could be a child. And I've never really told my kids what they should or shouldn't do. I've just reminded them, make your choices, but there's going to be consequences. There could be good consequences, could be bad consequences. Make them and live with them. And again, a story I've told many times, to further this point, I can remember some of my kids when they were 3-4 years old wanting to help in the kitchen, and my wife's come in, they're sitting on the side with a really sharp knife, maybe cutting some cucumber or something. And my wife goes, "What are you doing?" "I'm not doing anything." He is. So what I would say to them simply, when they'd say, "Can I help?" "Of course. This is sharp. I cut like this because I don't want to lose a finger. If you want to lose your finger, lose your finger." If there's any social workers out there, they're too big to take them away from me now. You're welcome to them. But they,
a bad thing. This is, isn't it?
I'd say to them, I don't want to lose my finger, so I was protecting like this, and I cut that way, and I do it slowly.
Yeah.
But if you don't mind losing a finger, just do what you want. I'm just saying to you, you could lose a finger, and I don't like to. 5 sons, never had an accident, never had a problem. I just accepted they wanted to do it. No is such an easy word. No is such an easy word to use. But actually, that's not meeting a need, is it? And it's not your job to say no. It's your job to facilitate growth. How different is that in business? Facilitate growth. And so I lived and died by that my whole life. And yeah, just for anyone's listening, none of my kids have ever had accidents.
You can be overprotective, but I think that's great. Kids need that nowadays more than ever, when they're, like you said, they're on their consoles, on their mobile phones. Back in the day, we used to have the local sort of boys club that we go to, football teams all the time, but this is dying out. So we definitely need people like yourself who are out there creating.
Well, I'm dying out, so my kids are grown up now, but it does need reminding that. I remember one of my sons, when he was joining secondary school, he's at university now, and I said, "You're looking forward to?" He said, "I'm looking forward to getting my mobile phone, Dad." So, well, that's kind of our fault, our generation, saying we just give them mobile phones because they go to high school. So, well, you don't really need, because I need one. I said, "You don't really need one." I said, "I went to high school and survived without one, so did Mummy. So the fact that we give you one is because we're both kind and stupid in equal measures. This idea of needing this stuff, we all survived without them. And so, yeah, and it was, James would tell you, it was a great time out on our bikes. You knew when dinner was because it got dark, and you come home accordingly.
Come back when the street
lights come on, you had to come up. And but to my point earlier, when my kids started going out at 13, 14 years old, they start seeing friends. They never once had a curfew. I just didn't think it was my job, and I've done that when I've had staff in the past. I think it's quite draining to be the person who's got to make all the decisions. What time you get home? What do you do after you finish that job? Now can you do that job instead?
But they become afraid to make their own decisions, don't they? It's that agency that we take away. We're sort of, if we come at it from a fear perspective, like overprotective, then they never get to sort of go, well, I'm going to make a decision on whether I do this or not. And I think the fundamental thing is exactly that example that you gave. It's like, well, this is how you cut something. This is how you don't cut your fingers. now follow what I've just told you, as opposed to don't use the knife. It's like, well, why don't I use a knife? You know, why can't I try something or go out and do? And I think we've, unfortunately, and it is a generational thing of parents that have, from being bombarded with bad news and issues in the world, that we're then going, well, I can't accept the guilt if something happens to you. If I've made a decision to allow you out and something happens, that's on me. And all I'm hearing is bad stuff, even though it might be the minority of the
statistically
1%.
Statistically, it's safer now to be a child than it's
tiny.
ever been in the UK.
Yeah,
Statistically.
exactly.
But the
you wouldn't
media
think
doesn't
so.
help.
You
Agreed.
wouldn't think so.
No, you wouldn't think so. The media obviously doesn't help, and that's, you know, that's fair enough. But again, I still maintain it's not our job to just impose our authority
No.
over your teams in the businesses you own, and equally your children. I think it's important to
It's disempowering.
just do what you got to do, live your
Yeah.
life, and make people aware. Make if it's a staff situation or whether it's your kids, make them aware of potential pitfalls, and ask them, can they think of any others as well?
Yeah.
And then make an informed decision, and whatever you choose, you know, at least you know you own it. And you know, I have to say I'm blessed. You know, 5 good lads, and I mean, I have to tell you, when I went to high school at 11, I don't think I'd been there a week, and I was offered cigarettes already. And I took that experience. By the time my kids, each one got to 11, they finished their babies up until that summer in primary school. All of a sudden, they become grown men. They can use buses. They've got phones.
Sure, yeah.
And I remember saying to each one of them, literally the day or two before they were joining high school, there is a chance, it may not happen, there is a chance you could get offered cigarettes, alcohol, drugs.
Yeah.
None of them are good for you, but if you want to take them, I'm not going to stop you. It's your choice. I'm just warning you that they're not good for you. But if you want to do it, doesn't mean I'm not going to love you any differently. None of them did it. I just made them aware this could happen. If it does, good luck to you. It's not for me to say yes or no. I just don't think that's my job to just say hard nose on things. And I got 5 good lads.
I think it's a really interesting social experiment, isn't it? I mean, you must have had this experience of 11 6-year-old lads all running after the ball like a flock of seagulls after a pasty. And I remember, it's just the funniest thing of seeing them all, this kind of just haphazard running after the ball, and they don't know you've got to be positioned here and there. If you don't tell them, they just all move uniformly after the ball. I thought that was brilliant.
But at that age is what you want them to do, because it should be fun and lack of discipline, and that structure doesn't really need to come into there about 11 or 12 years old, and they start getting a better understanding of the size of the pitch. And but everyone wants to.
It's a wonderful thing to watch. I used to love that.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved my time doing it. We had lots of good experiences too. It was great fun.
Yeah.
So where can people find you, David? And what sort of ideal businesses are you looking to speak to at the moment? Would it be renewable businesses of a certain size, or people that are looking to sell at that point?
So we're kind of now, with the investments we're currently making, we're now looking for profitable cash flow generating companies, because quite a few of what we got is a bit more of a sort of 24, 36 month investment. So we're looking for something that's a bit more cash flowy, a bit more, profit generating. And look, they can find me on LinkedIn for sure. I would give you my home phone number. We don't have one anymore. So LinkedIn's probably the best one, I would say.
And Echo 8.
Echo Investments, yeah.
Echo 8.
.co.uk, I think it is.
I think there's a dot something afterwards. You're probably right, James. You know better than me. There's a way of there's an info at, I think, on there as well. So,
and just quickly, why Echo 8?
So Echo 8, probably I couldn't think of a better way, because I can tell by James's twitching right nostril we're coming to an end. John's twitching right nostril we're coming to an end. So it's probably the best question you could have asked. But I'll let you be the judge of it. Echo 8 is the named after where I was born in Hackney, E8. So I've used the A for Alpha, B for Bravo, alphabet, and Echo 8 stands for Hackney, which is where I was born. So I named it after that.
Perfect.
We're back
What a
to the
wonderful way just
postcodes. We're back to the
Yeah, back to the-
postcodes.
Where we
circle.
started.
We've gone full
Full
circle.
circle.
Amazing.
No,
It's
great
almost
to have
like we
you
planned
on.
it.
Yeah, great to have you on, David. And
Thanks for having me.
we wish you
Amazing.
I always say
all the best
I
with your
always say, I'm sure you
ventures.
could have done better, but I'm humbled regardless. So thank you for asking.
No, it's all good.
You're
It's
very
a
welcome.
journey.
I knew it was going to
anyway,
be a good one.
Right, we'll see you in the green room afterwards. See you in a bit. Take care,
Bless you.
guys.
Take
Bye-bye.
care, everybody.